very thought of setting something in Ireland was something I'd wanted to do for years, and this just seemed like the perfect thing.
These four women are extraordinary. To carry that through for 10 episodes.
And just it being about five sisters, it's a love letter to sisters and sisterhood.
The fact that it came out week by week was the thing that, you know, people talked about it in between. I started out going like, oh, no one's watching it. And now I'm like, oh, people watched it. There's a lot of love for the sisters, but I love that there's a villain that everyone's just hating so much.
I've got a lot of messages from women saying how either one, they have dated someone like him, or two, that they have a sister or friend who's married to someone like him. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. I think that it's, you know, reaching people not just on an entertainment level, but like people are seeing their own reality in it. Also,
because it's a thriller, it really suits the weekly temptation, the agony of waiting to find out. That's really good fun, isn't it? Because everyone's in the same place at the same time. Mm-hmm. Everybody has the same amount of information.
I've had people contact me saying, especially after episode 9, going, we know you've got the last episode. Get it to me. Like, people are kind of threatening me on social media.
God gave John Paul the strength to be an unforgettable human being. Let us give thanks for the joy he spread his whole life long.
Everything bad that could have happened has happened. Except that.
I was brought the source material. I don't really have a huge concept of time right now, but I think it was about 2.5 years ago. And it was brought to me by Apple. And the good people at Apple, and they just said, we think this could be your next thing. And honestly, after watching the pilot episode, I emailed Jay Hunt and said, I think I am really interested. And I definitely hadn't wanted to adapt anything, and I had no experience of writing a thriller. But luckily, the Belgian series, which was created by Mal and Sarah Goes, and it's amazing. Like the structure of it and the ambition of it, all of that's there. It was just a very kind of heightened version. I felt like the things that I was most interested in were the inherent sort of comedic idea of it. These four sisters trying and failing to kill someone who's so hard to kill. And then just the five sisters together, that family bond. Like, I come from a big family, and just the idea of recreating that on screen, it's such an infectious thing to be around. I thought would be kind of gorgeous. But then the domestic abuse story at the heart of it, I just thought it was a really important story to shine a light on, and to get to do it in this way. It's a good way to school people. It's like people sort of, they invest in these characters and they feel like they know these characters. When they see a character they love, that they've gotten to know over 10 episodes, being treated in that way, it sort of opens it up for conversation. The very thought of setting something in Ireland was something I'd wanted to do for years, and this just seemed like the perfect thing.
Who knows if there's foul play here, but if there is, the culprit usually shows up at the funeral.
All right, Columbo.
Claflin and Sons. We're handling John Paul's life insurance policy. Were you very close?
Yeah, he was our brother-in-law.
My condolences, Mrs. Williams. Oh, egg and onion. It's like you knew I was coming. Did you?
She can't find out what we did.
When you get a script that's written by Sharon Horgan, it's pretty exciting before you even open it, to be honest. But I think it just read like nothing I'd ever seen before. What it does so brilliantly is it walks on that tightrope between comedy and tragedy extraordinarily. There's real jeopardy there. It feels like life and death, because it is at every moment for all of them. And I just thought it was all of these extraordinary female characters, every one of them swollen with personality, with complexity, and you don't get that very often. So that felt like a real treasure, a real feast. For me, I'd never played anyone like Grace before, not really. So I knew that would be a massive challenge. But I think, and I'd probably speak for all of us, it was a real no-brainer. There wasn't a should I, shouldn't I about it, I suspect, for all of us, because it's just an extraordinary piece of writing, a brilliant yarn, and something so refreshingly unique.
I think Anne-Marie put it perfectly. The idea that Sharon was doing, something different as well. She'd never written a murder mystery thriller alongside, slash comedy. So that was very appealing. And just it being about 5 sisters, it's a love letter to sisters and sisterhood. And I have a sister, and Jan, it's what you would do for that sister if she was in that position. So like Anne-Marie said, it was a no-brainer, and I got to wear an eye patch. So win-win.
I think it's the combination of 5 really strong, interesting, layered, funny ups. These brilliant, interesting women who carry this the story, which we don't get to see enough on telly, and it's that coupled with the many genres that is the show. And it is many genres, which I think is that you definitely don't see, and it made it fascinating and tricky to play, but gave us lots of options and challenges as actors with brilliant dialogue. So again, yes, a no-brainer. It was absolutely the case, because it's just the strength of scripts like that and the strength of characters like that don't pop on your lap every day. So when they do, you grab it.
The thing that excites me the most when I watch it is that there's something about watching women that is written by women, characters that is written by women. That's just a completely different perspective that we don't usually see in film and TV. And also for the woman writing it to be Sharon is just like an explosion of joy. Our characters are doing so many things that we just don't see happening a lot, but it's really going on in real life. So something really true about it that I think audiences are falling in love with and identifying with, and it's just kind of a thrill to be in it because it's doing something different.
Also, I pretty much asked, obviously, women that I really admired, but also I thought I would just get on great with for 10 months, because it's a long period of time. But there was also a lot of care as well, a lot of support and care, and we got that from our lead director Dervla Walsh, who we did our first sort of rehearsals with, and she was just absolutely intent on breaking down any kind of barrier that may have been there to begin with, and just made it really easy for us, right, to sort of bond and get that initial sort of stage out of the way where we might be a bit like quiet or nervous or whatever, but we weren't like that for very long. It was really
it's always a bit of a it is, sure, unless you're going to cast just your mates, but there's always a bit of a gamble involved, but it was a dynamic that did just seem to naturally work, and everybody sort of fired off each other. And mentioned support earlier. I think feeling that support from very, very early on, on and off set, was a massive thing. So I think it kind of brought us very much together, but also enabled us then to explore and try things out in set and be supported and encouraged to do that by your co-actors, which is a very
it felt like a safe place to even like stress out, to have a flap. When you feel like I mean, I flapped a few times, with certain scenes you're like, that's not going the way I had it in my head or whatever with the writing. And then we had one day where I was trying to sort of rewrite it as we were doing the scene, and we didn't have time, but you were allowed, there was that kind of atmosphere there, and which is just it's so important. But we're very lucky, I think. Your sisters are going to be there for you no matter what, even if you have a flap. They're going to support you, and that's
It was a little bit different for me. It was slightly tricky in a way because Grace is, by his desperate controlling behaviour, isolated from the other sisters. So I would just get little snapshots of it, from time to time. But it's the quest for the kingdom whenever you're filming is to try and get rid of the space in between people, isn't it? You know, you're desperately trying to create intimacy very, very quickly. Yeah, I thought I would love it. I'd be in such relief when I got to just be sitting around the table with the other girls rather than just be stuck in the house with him looming down on me, you know. So that would always be a bit of a breath of fresh air. So, but it was quite useful, you know, it fed into my performance, and it sort of really informed the loneliness and the fact that I did feel dislocated, you know, which was quite, I suppose, important in terms of the narrative. But it, you know, it was a little bit of a different journey in a way, you know.
As Anne-Marie said, the scenes when it was all of us around the table, like the Christmas dinner or the Easter, when it was all of us, that's when you really felt it come alive. It was really magical whenever it was the sisters together, all 5 of them. And then any time that Grace wasn't with us, like it reminded of one of the first scenes of when we get the call from her to say that she's not coming to the 40 foot on Christmas Day, and how crushing that was, and how, yeah, that he was just kind of kept pulling her away and succeeding and in isolating her. And when they get the phone call to say that she's not coming to the 40 foot, and that how that snowball, you know, how the ball starts rolling.
Oh yeah, and just to add to that, when we were at the 40 foot, and yeah, when we're at the 40 foot and we're sort of looking at the space in between us, and she's not there. And Anne-Marie, I remember you saying that when you watched that for the first, because obviously you weren't there for the filming of it, but it made you feel really sort of sad, because, you know, you'd shot the scenes with her being prevented from going, and you know, I saw that and felt her heartbreak, and then, you know, taking that into the scene where she's just not there. It's like he's vanished her, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because that's the nature of abuse, isn't it? Because you don't see that you're missed.
Yes.
And so for me, I was inside that abusive bubble. So then when I got to see those scenes, I saw the loss of me, rather than feeling like, well, you know, they're having the great time and I'm over here being bullied by a huge Danish actor. You know, I didn't see that I was missing from the group. It wasn't until I saw the panorama and watched the show that I was like, oh, poor Grace. She is really the missing piece of the jigsaw, you know?
Do you like it?
Yes.
I know you don't think he's a good man.
Families, they're complex.
I'm warning you. She doesn't respect you because you're weak.
I found myself an old red tattooed on a sign.
She wasn't always like that. He's sucking the life out of her. Well, we'll just have to wait till he dies of cancer or something. Why not give nature a helping hand?
Those scenes are so hard, and I kind of had experience of them before where, you know, you look at your schedule and you're like, but hang on, it's one scene. But of course, you've got to, you know, film it from so many angles and do it so many times and keep the energy and keep the camaraderie. And just using the Easter one as an example, there was a giddiness, I think, to all of us that day, and also having, you know, Anne-Marie as part of it, having Grace there and needing to show the audience this is what they're like when they're all together. They're just this sort of loony tribe, you know, they're wild, and to sort of see their past, you know, as when they were kids, as well as you know, as well as how they are now. But they worked because we worked really hard to make them work. You know, we just lots of sort of impro, lots of talk, lots of noise. You know, that just feeling of keeping it moving all the time and having these little separate conversations, and then just having a great director who's able to just capture it all, and then an exceptional editor who like, you know, is able to pieces it all together. And
it's when you really capture the dynamic, the sisterly dynamic. So
Yeah.
you see them all together like that, and how the different relationships work. Like one's a bit more sparkly, you know, somebody's a bit more closer than the other one.
Yeah.
Really, you see them all together, those things. I think that's when that becomes really evident. It's really lovely.
And I think that you can't deny the chemistry between these 4 women. It is so funny, and they're so smart together. It's like watching a Western or something, I think. They're like cowboys, you know, when they're planning, and they're all really sexy together, and really, I think that is so charming. And I think audiences just love those scenes of the panic and the plotting and the sort of insulting each other and celebrating each other. I think that these 4 women are extraordinary. That to carry that through for 10 episodes, because that could just be one gag that's done brilliantly in 2 episodes, but it's not. It's just carried through. They achieve something very special, and I think audiences love that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night because I was thinking about what's in episode 10. You know, because you forget. Obviously, I know what happens, but you forget what scenes you've shot because it's all out of order and everything. And I was going, God, I didn't notice how funny that was at the time. She drags me into the closet. Listen, you're just going to have to get over it, okay? I've had men ignore me all.
It's really funny, you know, because it was a big note on that scene was like being told that this wasn't the time to make a joke. And they were like, they're all panicking. She's not going to talk about, you know, men who have hidden from her. I'm like, you just have to say it's fine. Just like trust it. It'll be fine. It'll come out fine because they're sisters, and that's how they talk to each other, and also it's telly. Do you know what I mean? It's still telly, it's entertainment, and as long as we all believe it in that moment, our audience is going to believe it, you know?
But it's so true, like any kind of serious conversation I've ever had with my sister or my mother, you know, when you're the most, you know, heartbroken or whatever, there's constant jokes coming out of it because everyone's trying to make you feel better, and it feels like love, and I think that's maybe why people watch, you know, love those bits because you're like, oh, that's how my mom used to talk to me. That's how what my sister said.
Like it's like our world is collapsing, but there's still time to make you feel help your self-esteem.
Yeah, it's a way of being like, I'm caring for you. I was in the same.
You know?
You're talking about taking a man's life. Not a man, but monster. I'm on a roll! That's demented.
You're gonna land yourselves and me in jail.
I'm hungry. You? No.
Very luckily, you know, the gift of the original show gave us a lot. I tell you, the 2 best things that original show gave us was the nasal spray addiction, and he calls her, you know, whatever the Flemish for mum is. So translating that into the Irish mammy, and we went full bore. Sometimes we had to say to Clace, it's enough with the mammy, because he just sort of grabbed hold of it. Didn't he, Anne-Marie? It was never not a mammy thrown in there. And
oh my God. It was mammy overwhelm. And he even called me mammy when we were just having our cup of tea.
But that, like, just that in particular, his, you know, how he's sort of taken away her, sort of desexualized her in a way, you know, and it was such a small thing, but it did so much. He's kind of a mixture of, I guess, that original character and then every man I've ever met, really. And included in that is, you know, I guess the influence of other great TV villains. You know, the idea that it was really important that he have you see his vulnerability at times, because the more human he is, the more dangerous he is. That he, you know, he's an attractive man, and Grace still, you know, is really attracted to him, but we took away his sex appeal, really, you know, by making him a fool, whether it's when he's on the phone to his boss, or, you know, when the sisters sort of can see through him and laugh at him, and making him an outsider. You know, when our casting director it was her idea, Clace Bang, it was just like a total eureka moment, because it was a way to make him even more of an outsider. You know, the fact that he's Danish, but we make him Swedish, and the only thing we had to watch was for him not to for it not to go too far. You know, you had to really want to watch him. You had to be entertained by him, and for him not to be so awful that people go, well, something like that couldn't exist. I mean, which is ridiculous, because I mean, far worse people exist. But yeah, it was just a kind of balancing act, you know, keeping him entertaining and keeping him awful enough for people to want to see him dead over 10 episodes. It's a lot.
It's Grace.
Hey, honey, we're all here at Ursula's.
Hey, he's okay. Physically, he's okay. But mentally, he's wrecked. He said... He thinks someone's trying to kill him.
There's something incredibly frustrating about Grace. As much as you love her and you want to rescue her, you start to become impatient with her. You start to become infuriated by her. So you think, oh, for God's sake, because he is so relentless. It's a nice surprise for her to go, do you see? All along, you see? That was quite satisfying. I just wanted her to be a human being, and I wanted her to exist inside of herself, to be realized. She's not rescued, she rescues herself.
I always knew that I wanted it to end up in the 40 foot, and for Grace to be with her sisters, and for for it to end on a hopeful note. I mean, not in a way that's where you're necessarily celebrating a man's death, but they got what they fought for. They're together as sisters, and it was really interesting because the scripts, especially 10, changed so much as it went on, and as we filmed. There was a lot of sort of codas at the end for each character. You realize that in actual fact, you just want to see them together, and that would be enough, and that would be, to see Grace swim towards them would be so moving that it would be all you needed.
I think it's become like something bigger than we could have ever hoped for too. It's like grabbed such a wide audience of people. I mean, so many people have told me that they watch it with their family every weekend, and no one else is allowed, cheat. And it has to be all the kids are together and all the parents, and they're sitting down. They're going to watch the Garvey Girls get up to shenanigans. And with the message that we're trying to say, it doesn't feel like you're beating anyone over the head with it. We're making people laugh. Joy is so underrated, and we need it. It's just become this special cocktail of something. Like, I always thought it would be a success, but I didn't think it would hit people so hard. And so if we could do that for a season 2, it would be, I'm on board.